something that a lot of businesses don't have perhaps optimized, and it's especially important for that top section of the website that people see. And there has been various studies that show that those first 3 seconds of people interacting with your website really are very crucial. A lot of people will go, oh, this is not for me, and head off. And so you want to make sure that you're capturing the right people on that initial impression that they have when they first load up your website.
Welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast, where we guide natural health and wellness experts through the pitfalls of marketing. Each episode, you'll learn simple, effective, easily actionable, and heart-centered marketing strategies. And here's your host, Angus Pyke.
Well, gang, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast. Angus Pyke here, and I'm excited today to have Justin Meadows joining me. So today we're going to do a health check of your website. We've all got them. They're not a big deal anymore. But if they're working properly, there's really 8 steps, or there's kind of 8 hurdles that you should be making sure that we're going to be jumping over. And when it comes to website health, there ain't anybody better than Justin. So Justin, welcome to the show.
Yeah, pleasure to be on here. Thanks, Angus.
I've, as I mentioned to you before, I've spent all morning kind of combing through your website and learning lots and different bits and pieces. I'm excited to kind of talk about this framework. 10 or 15 years ago, just having a website was a big deal. That in itself was the wow factor. But nowadays, website is a bit like having a telephone number. We need to have one, but it astounds me when I'm looking at many of the coaching clients that I deal with, how many of their websites are horrible. And I'm not even a website expert, and I know lots of things that we're going to talk about today. But before we jump into that, can you give our audience a little bit of a background journey that what brought you up to where you are now and the company that you run and the things that you do?
For sure, yeah. So I live in a small country town. I'm not far from Melbourne. I'm up in the snowfields near Mount Buller. And I started online just playing around with my own sort of websites, hobby sort of things, doing the SEO on them to get them ranking, and learnt that sort of skill. And then I started helping out local business owners with their websites and that sort of thing. And I found that consistently I needed to do a lot of work to improve their website's performance in order to get better results for them, like in terms of SEO, but then also what they got from that SEO. And I sort of that's how I sort of got started in this industry, because then I found that fixing up people's websites really was a good business model for me. Being in a small country town, focusing on that allowed me to, I've got a team that work for me in the Philippines. I hire them directly full-time, and that has allowed me to grow from being in a small country town to servicing people all over the world. So that was sort of why I've sort of got to where I am with my business. Now we really focus. We did a lot of work to start with, helping out other marketing agencies with getting their clients' websites built and optimized and looking after them. We do hosting and support. Now we really focus on working directly with business owners as well.
So you kind of talked about performance and SEO. Are they different sort of things? So you said, look, local businesses were coming to you and saying, man, let's take a step back. What is SEO? What does it stand for, and why is it important? So for some of our listeners, even that word SEO might be a new word.
For sure, yeah. So SEO is search engine optimization, and that is essentially getting your website ranked higher in Google and making sure that when people are searching for your type of service, your website shows up and they can easily find you. It's especially important that at least people can find you when they're searching for you. So I know that in the health space, a lot of work comes through referrals from other people saying, oh, this guy helped me out with my back, and have a chat to him. You want to make sure that when people Google you on their phone or on their laptop to find you, that your website does actually come up and they can get in touch with you. So that's the basics of it. There is a lot of technical stuff we could go into with that. That's a whole other podcast episode to really cover all the aspects of SEO. It's quite a complex topic, but yeah, there's that's the basics of it. And in terms of performance, I've sort of using that as an overarching term to sort of encompass getting a result that you want from the website. So is it performing? Are you getting that result? And the result might be getting more customers calling you up on the phone, or getting more people emailing you and inquiring about your services. Whatever that result is, you want to make sure that your website is performing as well as it can be, because otherwise you're putting in a lot of effort with your marketing and that sort of thing. And if your website's not performing, that can really you can be leaving a lot of money on the table. If people are getting to your website and for various reasons they're not finding you, it's loading really slow, the messaging isn't right, or it looks ugly, or something else is wrong with it, and you're losing that customer. So I think it's very important, because these days website is the cornerstone of everyone's marketing.
Is there some truth, and I remember reading some statistics for one of the courses I was teaching, that, if somebody's searching for a chiropractor, I'm in Port Melbourne, down here in Melbourne, not far from where you are, and one of the key search terms that someone's going to be putting in is chiropractor Port Melbourne. Now, this is if they're not looking for me directly, but they're looking for a chiropractor in their local area. And SEO would be one of those things that hopefully for that search term there, that I'm going to turn up certainly on the first page and as close to the top. And then not being up near the top and not being on that first page is really going to impact the ability of somebody ending up at my website. Is that a pretty good summary?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That is basically what it's all about, making sure that you get on the page for the thing that people are searching for to find your kind of service.
Yeah. And then on top of that, which we're about to kind of jump into now, so it's one thing for your site to come up nice and up the top and rank really well. And really what we're going to talk a lot about is what happens when they click on that button and head on over to your website. What does it look like? We're going to talk about speed and loading rates and mobile flexibility, all those kind of things there too. But you typically talk about kind of 8 points. And as you're listening to, gang, I'm going to have all these 8 points. We'll have a bit of a checklist that we'll put together for you over on the ADIO Media podcast section, so under this podcast episode. So if you're driving along at the moment or walking the dog, listen through this. And this is the kind of health check that you would want to put your website through to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. So shall we jump on in with point number 1?
For sure. Yeah. So the first one is the first impression. It makes sense. So what is the first thing that people sort of feel and the message that comes to them when they first see your website? And it's good exercise for you to have a look at your own website just with fresh eyes and think about, imagine you're a customer, click on the website, and just what is the first thing that sort of jumps out at you and that sort of thing? What is the message that you receive from that website? And I do see this as something that a lot of businesses don't have perhaps optimized. And it's especially important for that top section of the website that people see. And there has been various studies that show that those first 3 seconds of people interacting with your website really are very crucial. A lot of people will go, oh, this is not for me, and head off. And so you want to make sure that you're capturing the right people on that initial impression that they have when they first load up your website. And so doing the most important thing there, I think, is to identify your core target market and then have a clear message that speaks directly to that core target market. So it's a trap that a lot of businesses, I'm guilty of this as well. You have a lot of things going on. You can serve a lot of different people. There are probably a lot of different solutions that you can provide to a lot of different problems. You've got to think about what is the one problem that you would love to solve day in, day out, and you want to get more of those types of people to come to you so that you can solve that type of problem. If you can identify what is that core, then make sure that your messaging really speaks to that core very clearly. And it doesn't mean that you need to eliminate the other things that you do in your business and the other problems that you can solve, but you want to make sure that you're speaking very clearly to that problem, and people will still realize that you have other things that you can do. People assume that normally. And so you're not going to be turning away people by focusing on that core message.
When you're talking about kind of that messaging, is that messaging are we talking about text and photos and video, or all of those kind of things? And then what are some of the big mistakes that people make as far as those first impressions?
Yeah, so it really is all of the above. It's a combination of images and text and video. So certainly images are very powerful, they're instant. And then that text, you need to make sure that it is very clear. There's not too much going on. The biggest mistake I see is people trying to put too many different messages on the front page of their website, and they have too many different offers or things going on, or stuff that they're trying to say. Because as business owners, things evolve, and you add new things to your business, and you realize, oh, we could be doing this better or something like that, and you just chuck it all on, and quite often over time it'll just get cluttered with all these things, and you've lost that clear message. So you've got to make sure there's a hierarchy of things that grab your attention. So that first clear message that really pops out and stands out, and that you get initially, needs to be your core one. Then you can have other things further down the page or hidden in less sort of attention grabbing ways. But yeah, you've got to make sure that you structure the hierarchy of those messages to your audience.
Justin, I often see websites now with these I help statements right up the top of them. So, it might be, I help elite athletes stay on the field, or I help people get rid of low back pain and sciatica naturally. So are those kind of statements helpful? Is that the kind of thing that you're talking about? Keep it really simple, really clear with an I help, or we do, or we serve, that kind of big heading statement up the top. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is important to talk about the customer and the customer's problem, not about yourself. So that's another big mistake that I think that people are getting better at it these days, but a lot of the early websites, the common thing was to have welcome to blah, blah, blah business, on the website. And that's not really a message that connects with the person who's in pain. You've got to say, we help solve this problem. And then they go, oh, right, I'm in the right place. I've got that problem. Yes. And they keep reading, So you've got to make sure that you're thinking about it from the customer's point of view, or your patient's point of view.
And then what about images? Because, many of the practitioners that are listening to this now, we're complementary, we're alternate health practitioners. We're as much about, promoting a well life as we are about helping people out of their aches and pains. And so often I see these pictures on their websites of happy families walking on the beach hand in hand. They're very obvious stock images. Now, should we be using stock images like that, or should it be photos of the practitioner? What's your feel with what should be on the homepage?
That is a tricky question, and it will depend on the business owner and the type of business that they have. I think that it is good to focus on the results that you want and the feelings that you want to achieve for your customer. So having that kind of thing is a positive message. It's probably better than going with a negative message of showing pictures of people with broken body bits or whatever. However, another thing to do is, and this actually is a nice segue into the next topic, is build trust with your audience by having that personal connection. So if you're happy to put your face on there and have that human and personal sort of connection, that is another way that you can use imagery that connects with the patient, and it's not necessarily that sort of stock kind of generic imagery. So also you can be very, if you dig around, it does take a bit of time, but you can find some stock imagery that is better than others. So it's,
We're seeing, it's a slight segue, but the reason I kind of asked that question is that, with many of the Facebook ads that we run with ADIO Media, having great stock images, 3 or 4 years ago used to be great. But nowadays, the kind of photos that tend to get the best click-through rates for us and engage with our audiences most are just photographs of me doing things like drinking a coffee, those kind of things there. And I wonder if it is that, because what you talk about is there is that trust element. And I think, look, in all businesses, whether you be going to a plumber or you want to go get your pictures framed, trust is important. But I think particularly with us as healthcare practitioners, when somebody's handing their body over, so to speak, there is that real vulnerability. And I think anything that we can do to build trust. What other elements should we have on that page there that would build trust? So possibly a photograph of us. What other really good key trust elements for us to put in?
Yeah. So apart from having a bit about you and providing that kind of personal connection and having a bit of personality in your website and about page and that sort of thing that talk about, how you help people, where you've come from, that sort of thing. Another good thing is to provide lots of helpful content and try to show that you can solve and that you care about solving the kind of problems that they have. And I know that you talk about this a lot, having video, especially where you're talking about solving people's problems, really does help build that connection and build trust with your audience. Some other things, because I know that especially in the health space, testimonials can be a tricky one,
Yes.
probably best avoided.
Yes.
And things like case studies. So you can't really do a lot of that kind of thing that I would recommend to some businesses. But you can, if you're involved in any associations to do with the area of health that you're a part of, showing those logos and displaying the fact that you are part of those associations and displaying the qualifications you have and perhaps, the university that you got the qualifications from or things like that. That is other things that can help to build trust and build your authority.
Got it. And so I often see this on websites. So it might be, in my case, I'm a member of what used to be the Chiropractors Association, the Spinal Research Foundation. And then I could also put in there, if I'm a regularly write for the Leader newspaper, have appeared on Triple M radio station, I could put those kind of elements like as seen on or contributor to. Would they be the kind of things that would build trust also?
Absolutely, yeah, because you're establishing yourself as an authority, and you're also borrowing the authority of those media organisations that are probably well known to the people that you're, to your patients and that sort of thing. Oh yeah, the other good one that you can do that's a bit sort of out of the box, but you can build trust by perhaps talking about the kind of ethical values that you have inside your business and making a little logo or an icon that sort of shows that, we care about this, we have these values. And if that might be something that's important to your customer and just showing that you are confidential and in that sort of thing can reinforce that trust.
And then that helpful content that you talked about underneath this umbrella of building trust, that would be things like in our blog posts and maybe even our social media posts that's linked as a part of it. Is that where we're delivering that kind of content that basically kind of helps our audience get a result?
Yeah, it's good, and this also helps with SEO. If you have a page dedicated to some really helpful content on the core problems that you solve, the core services that you offer, then if people are searching for that particular thing, you've got a page about it on your website, so that can really help. But then you want to be publishing regular information on your blog post, sharing that out to social media, and where possible, referencing those core articles, pages of information that you have. And all of that helps with your SEO, and it helps to build trust, because then people see that you are an expert and they go, right, this guy knows what he's talking about. And that really helps, especially if they're comparing you, who is providing helpful content, to someone else who isn't. That can really sometimes make the difference between who they choose.
Justin, you talked about regularly. I know sometimes when I'm having a look at clients' websites, I go to their blog, and their most recent blog post was in 2012. And it's funny the feeling I get when I view that. It's like, this is out of date. And the information might be just as current now about what I need to do to help with, X, Y, and Z. But there's that recency that's not there. So how often should we be adding new content in there so we have that recency, and also that it helps with trust as well? SEO.
Yeah, look, I would say at a minimum, publish something once a month. I know that people get busy, and if you can do that, then that's acceptable. If you can get something out once a week, that is ideal, or every couple of days. I know that sometimes that's very hard. A good thing to do is to batch that content, so that then you spend one day creating a whole bunch of content. And we have a process for this as well, where you often talk about creating videos. That allows you to then create other smaller bits of content, like the text from that video and other things like that, that you then have a whole stack of stuff to share over the coming month.
Yeah, great. So the new content could be blog posts, it could be video, it could be a podcast like we're doing now, as long as it's kind of regular content that you're producing and it's helpful to your audience as well. They're the key factors.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you were saying, if you visit a website and the last thing that they did was 5 years ago, then you sort of start thinking, well, are these guys still in business, or
Yes.
what's going on here? It really does hurt that trust factor if people have really old comments. In fact, I would say that when it comes down to it, if you really are not, if you do have that going on and you're not going to publish regularly, turn your blog off. Just delete that page from your website. You're better off not having it rather than having something that's 5 years old.
Yeah, great point. And I would totally agree with that too. Our next point number 3, is all about kind of generating sales. And I guess in our case, with our listeners, generate sales probably means getting people on the phone, actually ringing us and making an appointment. That's what it means?
Yeah, absolutely. Getting them from the stage where they're looking at your website to picking up the phone, sending an email, contact form, booking in an appointment, whatever that happens to be for you and your website, how you've got it set up. A good thing to do, and this is something that a lot of local businesses don't do, is try to capture a lead. So get people to indicate that they are interested in the sort of services that you're providing. They might have the kind of problem that you solve. And you can do that by providing a bit of helpful content that they can sign in with their email address to receive. And that way that person with that email address is interested in that sort of thing. And you can follow up with them and form a relationship with them over a long time by providing them with more of the same kind of helpful content, and that will eventually turn them into a loyal patient of yours. And another thing, sort of just in terms of the website and sort of a performance issue that I see a lot of business owners have, is that they're not tracking what's actually going on their website. They have no idea how many people are looking at their website and how many people are phoning up and that sort of thing. So simply tracking it and getting to know those numbers allows you to see where the problems are, where there's holes in your current website, and that then allows you to fix the problems.
And how would we track it? And how do we get that information?
Yeah, there's a few different things you can do to set up that tracking. I would say the first step to do would be to get Google Tag Manager. So if you've got a Google account, if you don't get one, set up Google Tag Manager. And you might need help from a website developer to do this. It can get a little bit technical, but it's not too tricky. That you insert that tag manager on your website's code, and that allows you to then put all the other tracking things into that tag manager. And the other things that I would be tracking are Google Analytics gives you information about what pages people are visiting on, how many people are visiting your website, and you can get some really useful data out of that. It'll tell you things like what kind of devices they're coming to you, whether they're coming from a mobile phone or on their desktop, and you can find out what pages they're most interested in, that sort of thing. Then another great tracking is Hotjar, or there are other ones like it where you get heat map tracking and screen tracking. So you can see how people are interacting with your website, what they're actually clicking on your design. And that can sometimes give you some really good clues as to what's important on your website and what's really not, and you should perhaps hide. So those I think are the main three things.
So I've got Google Analytics and a tag manager on there, and I'm looking at the information. And so help me more with what I might find out from that. So people are coming to my site. How would I use that information? So, you're obviously managing this for lots of different sites. How do you use that for that being helpful to me as the small business, which we all are? What kind of things might I find out that might then help to guide my design and the first things we talked about, building trust, those kind of stuff?
Yeah, it can sort of vary from business to business, and if we see that not many people are signing up for your main lead, then we can sort of have a think about, well, why might that be? And looking at the heat map tracking, we might find that no one's actually scrolling far enough down the page to see that lead magnet that you've got where they enter in the form. So we need to move that further up the page, or they're not going to the page that you thought they would all be going to that has your main service offering, or something like that. The other thing is that finding out that 70% of your visitors to your website are coming from a mobile phone allows you to go, right, well, what's the mobile phone experience like? And you might find when you look at it that actually there's something really wrong with the way that's displaying on your mobile phone. That needs to be fixed, and that will turn into a great result for your business. So there's no sort of blanket thing to look at, but there are a lot of clues that you can get from just looking at what are the pages that people visit the most, how much time do they spend on the page, what are they clicking on. There's some, it takes a little bit of digging around, but you can get some really good information there.
Yeah. See, I wonder, as I'm kind of thinking through things, we might find out that, for instance, people are coming to your site and immediately bouncing off, which tells us that we're not doing something great. We can start to investigate why that might be and trial. And I'm also wondering if there happened to be a particular blog post of mine that lots of people were going to and spending lots of time on, it might make sense to link that right back on the homepage there as one of your helpful pieces of content to kind of get the traffic even more so through to that. Is that a fair kind of idea?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you find something that's a really hot topic that's working well for you, obviously do more of it and promote that more. And you might find that you want to work that message into your core message at the top of your homepage if it's not already there. And things like bounce rate can be a bit of a deceptive metric, because what it means is that people are looking at your website and they might be reading through your entire blog post, and then they go back to Facebook, and that will come up as a bounce. So you might have given them some really good information. They might have thought these guys are great and they're going to keep following you, but it comes up as a bounce. So it can be a little bit deceptive, but yes, it is an indication that the person has not gone further into your website and looked at other pages and checked you out. They've gone back to wherever they came from, whether that was Google or they've just closed down the browser or something like that.
Got it. Now, to move on to this next point, because you sort of touched on it before when we talked about mobile devices and what does it look like on your mobile devices. So you talk about easy access is our point number 4 in terms of our health check. Let's talk about this concept of easy access.
Yeah, sure. So that's I've made this easy access a bit of an umbrella sort of term to cover mobile responsiveness, but also depending on your market, you might be dealing with elderly patients that have trouble using computers, have trouble with vision. So you want to make sure that your website really is easy for them to use and easy for them to get in touch with you or book an appointment, to find your phone number, those sort of basic things. You want to make sure that it's you're covering all those bases that are appropriate to your target market. And then, on mobile devices, especially if you do have a high number of people using mobile devices, you want to make sure that that experience is good. These days, we don't create separate mobile websites. We just restructure the existing website to make it mobile friendly, so it lays out in a way that's easier to use. The menu's easier to click on, and you don't need to scroll around and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's pretty easy to check. What I would suggest that our listeners do is, put in their domain on their mobile device and have a look at it. I've been caught by mine not long ago. They went, wow, that really doesn't come up great at all. And thankfully now many of our WordPress frameworks, those kind of things there too, naturally do a lot of this for you as well. So,
and most business owners are looking at their own website while they're at work with their computer in front of them. They're not often looking at their own website on their phone. But most of your customers, especially in the health space, probably are using a mobile phone because they go, oh, that's right, I really should do something about that back. And then they jump straight on the phone and check it out.
Yeah, and again, you would find, I'm seeing this, we would find all of that kind of, when our data from beforehand, from the Google Analytics, from the traffic, what's going there. So making sure that our site has easy access to. This next one here is a topic that I've had some real difficulties with in the past, and so all about loading fast. Why is that important? How fast should it be? What things can I do to speed up the rate of load of my site? Because it can have a huge impact, I'm told.
It can, yeah, it really can make a massive difference. I think there was a study done by Amazon a little while ago, and they found that every second of load speed that they sliced off how long it takes their website to load, gave them an extra, I think it was like 3% of sales conversions, and that for that business, turns into hundreds of thousands of dollars. But it's still equally important for a small business, because that loading time, for some people who have maybe a dodgy connection, I know that a lot of areas in Australia have dodgy NBN or don't have NBN connection.
Yes, can't even get it.
Yeah, so it is important to make sure that it loads as fast as possible for those kinds of people, and also on phones and that sort of thing. Sometimes the how fast it loads can be an issue, and people do get impatient. People will hit back if a website's not loading fast enough for them. They just go, oh, and they go back to Google and they click the next one on the list, and then you've lost that customer. So it really is important to make sure that you do load your website really fast. And the main things that you can do to achieve that are implementing what's called caching. It's a bit of a technical term, but essentially what that means is that a copy of your website is saved in their computer or saved in a data center close to their computer. So it makes it a lot faster to load up that website. And there's a few different ways that you can do that. Again, you might be better off talking to your website developer about that. But implementing caching is definitely important. There are a lot of different caching tools that you can use in WordPress. Another tool I use is Cloudflare, and this is a service that provides that network of data centers around the world in all major cities, so that when people click on your website, they're not actually getting the files from the initial server. They're just getting it from the closest Cloudflare data center, and that makes it a lot faster to load. Some other things are having a look at the images on your website and making sure that, if they're displaying this big on the page, they're not actually this big. You want to make sure that they're appropriately sized, and there are other tools that you can use to optimize those images and make sure that you can crunch them down to smaller file sizes and still retain the same level of quality.
Yes.
And you want to make sure that you're doing that with all of your images. Another trick as well is with videos on your website, having that video script on the page does actually slow down the load time of your website. And again, this is a bit more of a technical trick, but instead of embedding the video directly onto the page, you can have an image there that looks like the video, and then once users click on that image, then it loads up the video script. So it means that they get onto that page quicker.
Yes.
And that loading time only happens once they've clicked on the video to view it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned before, I've read time and time again of the impact of load speed. And we live in this society nowadays that wants instant results with everything. And, I've found myself at times too, if I'm kind of thumbing through, I click on a link. If it's not loading immediately, and if I'm not super interested, then I'm out of there really quickly as well. So load speed, there are a bunch of plugins and stuff that, we have them on our website too, that helps to automatically kind of squash those images down. And, I've got even some things just on my Mac that kind of helps to do that as well. So on to point number 6, which I guess kind of everything has gone into so far. We've talked about kind of ranking high. So what's your thoughts on, anything else to add to that from what we've spoken about so far?
Yeah. So, and just another point is that loading fast does actually affect how high you rank. Google have now made it a factor in their rankings. Google want to provide a good experience to the people who use Google.
Yes.
So they want to make sure that the websites that are coming up the top do load fast for them, and especially on mobile. So if you are looking at mobile, there are some more tricky things you can do there. There's a new code structure called AMP that Google are using that make your websites load really fast on mobile devices. That's sort of another topic. But yeah, apart from those sort of core things that we've already covered, really what gets you the bulk of the way there with SEO and with ranking high in Google is solving problems, answering questions, providing useful content on a regular basis, and making sure that you give an appropriate and good title to the pieces of content that is relevant to the problem that you're solving. So just giving it good, lengthy titles, publishing it regularly, and sharing it out onto social media, that really gets you the bulk of the way there. There are a lot of tricky things you can do and technical things, but that's, as I mentioned, that's sort of, that's a lot we could dive into there, probably for another podcast.
Justin, does Google care about dwell time, how long somebody's on the site? Is that a concept that they would take into account? I don't know if that's the right word to use, dwell time, but is that, is there any kind of logic that if somebody comes to my site, spends a bunch of time on there, that they're doing a search for something over, then spends a bunch of time on there, is that something that will help the authority of my site and then ultimately, the SEO over time if people are doing that?
Yes, I believe so. Now, that's actually not a topic that I've looked at for a while. But I do think that the things like bounce rate and the amount of time that people are spending on the site does have a slight impact, but it's not a very strong ranking signal.
Yes.
I can't remember the particulars of that off the top of my head.
Because I know in the early days here, and this, I started my own little case study to see what was happening. So here in Port Melbourne, there are a bunch of really great chiropractors around, and many of them spending, good money on getting people to really help them rank. To work as well. And my strategy was really simple. I went, you know what? I've got a good database of patients. I'm going to make a weekly video, and then I'm going to email all my patients and say, go on over here and watch my video. And so I had people each and every week going over to my site, watching videos, spending time on the site there too. When I kind of began this experiment, my site wasn't even coming up on page 1, but within 6 months, my site has gone to the top of page 1. And the last 10 years, it hasn't dissipated from there. So we regularly create content. We regularly have people going over there, and they regularly spend a reasonable amount of time on there as well. And I wonder, because, I often get really concerned when I hear of people coming to me about outsmarting Google. I'm like, man, these dudes are the smartest characters going around. And if you think that your little local, South Melbourne internet ranking place is going to outsmart them, then I would tell our audience to be really concerned about those kind of promises. In the same way that anybody promises you they've got the secret to your health, it's a process that goes through, and Justin's done a really good job. We've got more points to go through, but this is a process rather than an event of us building on all of these things. It's going to give you a really great asset as far as, a website goes as well. So, my two bob there on what's worked really well for me in my practice website.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure if it's necessarily the amount of time that people are spending on your site, but just the fact that you are publishing quality content and videos. Google know that sort of thing is valued by people on, looking for information on the internet. So they're going to show the websites that are publishing regular, valuable information in multimedia formats. And there's a good chance that those people that you had watching your videos were sharing that occasionally with their friends and in other places. And that's another thing that helps. So Google use a lot of different ranking signals to see what is the most valuable website on that topic. And that's what it all boils down to. You've got to be the most valuable website on the internet on that topic. Yeah. And then Google will put you up the top.
Yeah, got it. And I think too, because, not to have that be overwhelming for our audience, but, you've got to be the most valuable website on the topic of chiropractor Port Melbourne, not the most valuable website on all of chiropractic, on all of, health, on all of spinal care. That's a different thing there too. But, if somebody's looking for chiropractor Port Melbourne or naturopath Sydney or whatever it is that they're likely to put in there too, how do you get yourself up there with that too, to just perhaps take a little bit of overwhelm off our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a bit of a something that people trip over all the time, is they try to go for those big overarching words to rank for. You don't want to be number one in Australia for chiropractor.
No.
It's not even worth going for that, because most of the people searching for that are trying to find out what is a chiropractor, or something like that, or they're doing a school project on chiropractor, or, you just don't know. You want to be coming up in Google for the types of things that people are searching for to solve their problem. So something like bad back chiropractor, Port Melbourne.
Yes.
That is a piece of gold.
Yes.
That's the sort of thing that you want to be coming up for. And with those local searches, there are a few other things you can do. It's really important that you claim your Google My Business listing. So that local listing so go to Google My Business, I think it is. They've changed the name of it several times. And make sure you claim that listing, put in as much information as you can, link your social media accounts to your Google My Business listing and your website. Make sure that Google is well aware that all of these things are all about you. And that really helps Google put the pieces together and go, right, this guy is in Port Melbourne. So when people are searching there, we'll put him up.
Yeah, great point. On to point number 7, which is all about stay secure. What does that mean?
Yeah, so it is really important to security is a very big thing, obviously, on the internet, and especially as a health professional, people want to feel that sense of security. So if they're coming to your website and they're getting a malware alert warning or something like that on their browser, that's really going to hurt that trust factor immediately, because they know that you are storing sensitive data about their personal information. They want to make sure that they can trust you with security. So it is important that you do that. There is another thing, the website address should be HTTPS.
Yes.
And that means that you have an SSL certificate. That means that your data is encrypted as it travels through the internet from your website. That information is secure. Google have, again, made this a ranking factor. So if you're not using the HTTPS, you will have a lower ranking score. And it gives you that little security icon up in the top of the browser. Again, that's another trust factor. But aside from that, you also want to make sure that your website is secure so that you don't go through the headache and heartache that comes with having your site hacked. Apart from being damaging to your brand, it can kill 2 days of productivity for yourself as you're trying to work out what's going on and paying someone to fix it. I've gone through this with a number of people who've come to us going, help, and it really is an ordeal that you want to avoid. So make sure that you are keeping all the software in your website up to date. You have someone who's looking after that on a regular basis, that monthly updates. We do this for our clients. We keep everything secure. We know when it's appropriate to install things and when there's an urgent security update that needs to be patched straight away. Those sort of things are important. And then also having a firewall plugin that stops those spam bots and malware programs that are just automatically trying to get into your website, because they are out there on the internet all over the place trying to get into all the websites for whatever reason. I don't really understand who creates these things, but they do.
Someone with way too much time on their hands, I reckon. I mean, that just seems like a no-brainer, the security one. So, I visited a site just earlier on in the week of a guy whose stuff I really like, and I went to his home site, followed a link there, and he hadn't done the HTTPS, hadn't had that. And it was interesting because it kind of popped up saying this site is unsecure. And it was like, oh, do I really want to spend time on here as well? It was really quite repulsive. I kind of got out of the site. I'm sure nothing nasty would have happened to me if I had have stayed there as well. Really great guy, terrific coach there as well. And, we need to make sure that we're taking little steps like that as well. The final point is all about kind of building assets. So step number 8 there as well is building assets. What do you mean by that?
So your website is a asset for your business. It helps you to, build profit and grow your business and all that sort of thing. So over time, if you decide to sell your practice and sell your business, that website is a valuable asset and part of that business package that you can sell. So make sure you're thinking about it like that, and all the content that you're providing and putting onto it and helping it rank in Google, that's all building an asset. It's a long-term asset that over time increases in value. It's not decreasing in value, and it can be sold. So you've got to make sure that you're thinking about that. Even though you're spending time and you're not seeing an immediate result, this is a long-term game, and all this stuff does have have value later on down the track. The other things that you can be doing in terms of building assets is your email database. Having that email database is an asset for you. You can, if you're having a slow period, you can get in touch with the email database and generate some more patients out of it. And that again is something that you can sell when you go to sell your business later on down the track. Other things that you could be doing is there's a thing called remarketing, and you might have experienced this when you go to an e-commerce store and you look at a pair of shoes or something, and then you go, oh yeah, I might not get them, and then later on you're reading the news and you see a picture of those shoes up there saying, hey, do you want these shoes? That sort of thing. It's called remarketing. What they're doing there is when you visit the website, you can be cookied, so that there's a bit of code in your browser that says you've been to that website, and you can show ads directly to those people. So people who might not have opted in with their email address, you can still be, they've come to your website, so they must be kind of interested in what you have to show. You want to be careful about it. You don't want to be spammy, but you can just be like, hey, if you have problems with back pain, check out this solution or something like that. And that can just remind people that you're there, and over time, having that remarketing list can be an asset for your business as well. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that concept of, I guess, getting into the audience's mind that when somebody comes to your website and then leaves, it doesn't mean they don't like you, doesn't mean they don't want to use your service. It just means that they're not ready right now. And this, I think, is one of the really most important concepts to get into. And then even, when you talked about that kind of remarketing, rather than even popping an offer in front of them, what we teach a lot of our coaching clients inside Community Influencer to do, these are the people that over on Facebook that you want to make sure that they're seeing your helpful videos. And if you can get to that stage where they're going, oh my God, that Angus dude is everywhere. Like, I just watched a great video on Instagram. I watched a great video over there on Facebook. I saw. And you can take somebody through that buyer's cycle where they get to the stage where they know, like, and trust you enough that they're happy to get on the phone there. And remarketing, I feel like we could have another whole conversation about that at another time there as well. So
absolutely. And that's again, building that trust and authority stuff. And this is just for the technical side of things. That remarketing code, you get that from Google or from Facebook, and you put that into your Google Tag Manager. And that means that you don't have heaps of these tracking codes and scripts and stuff slowing down your website. And then with those platforms, Google and Facebook, having those banner ads out there can actually be very inexpensive as well.
Yes.
So it's really worth doing for the amount of brand and authority and trust that it builds with your audience. It really is great value for money, because you're not paying when people see it, you're paying when people click, and quite often they'll see it 20 times and before they click.
Yeah, great stuff. Justin, what a valuable framework. We've taken our way through 8 steps as well. So for all of our listeners, over on adiomedia.com/podcast, head to this episode with Justin and I, and all of those 8 points plus the other links that we spoke about will be there as well. If you're wanting somebody to hold your hand through this, and I want to remind you, your job is to be a great chiropractor, a great naturopath, a great Chinese med practitioner. And when we have great people as a part of our team, it can help us do what we know is best. So, Justin, if people want to kind of get in contact with you, what website should they go to? How do they reach out and find out about how you can help guide them through this process way faster?
For sure. Yeah. So tunedwp.com, that's tuned with a D. WP.com is our website, and on there we have our services where we can audit your website and find out all the things that could be improved to get you a better result and improve the performance of your website. And then we can do the ongoing hosting, maintenance, and support to make those small changes over time as your business grows. We'll look after you and make sure that you're performing as best as you can.
Got it. So is there a cost for that audit?
Yes, there is two ways we can do it. Actually, I offer the audit on its own for $200 US.
Yes.
Or if you're signing up for our unlimited support plan, where we look after everything, we'll actually do that audit at no extra charge. It's free included in that service. We do that at the start before we
Got it.
start looking.
Okay, so for $200 US dollars, somebody you'll go through meticulously all 8 of these points and give somebody a health report back, and then they can work out what to do from there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Sounds like a no-brainer to me, gang. So tunedwp.com. All the links will be over on the show as well. So Justin, thanks for being so generous today. It's such a brilliant framework. I was really excited about talking today. Whole bunch of things that I'm going to check with regards to my site as well. So any final thoughts that you want to leave our audience with?
No, just focus on the client and helping them out. That's really the key.
Yeah, great point. Great point. Well, gang, again, as always, this has been the Marketing Your Practice podcast. Have a great day. Thanks for all that you guys continue to do out there. Your communities need you. You're saving lives each and every day. So until next time, over and out. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Angus. Cheers.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out the Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work one-on-one with you to apply, implement, systematize, and help guide you and your practice to the next level. Now you can join me on over at adiomedia.com/join. That's adiomedia.com/join. I'd love to see you in there.